Hello everyone, welcome back. You'll notice there's been a slight change since episode 1. So where did this farm come from? Where did this iron axe come from? And where did this chest come from? So 36 iron, a little bit of inventory setup as well. Mined out this room a little bit. I did a recording just this morning. I went to start editing and I realized that only the game volume had been recorded and not my voice. So I'm using OBS Studio to record, just because it's free and it's nice and simple. And I wanted the ability to record two different tracks, so I wanted to split my voice from the game volume, so that if I needed to cough or if I needed to edit my text or volume or anything like that, the game wouldn't be interrupted, so the video it doesn't just go silent. Um, when I mute myself to cough, for example, at the moment everything has to go quiet, but um, I don't want that to be the case, basically. So I'm going to include some footage now of what we did. Um, you can see in the top left it says days played 6, so that was probably 3 or 4 in episode 1. And it's just, I suppose, a little bit of accountability, so you can see, I haven't altered the game files and cheated in some iron or anything like that. I mean, if I was gonna cheat, I think I would have done a little bit more anyway, rather than mine out 6 blocks in there and made some, you know, wheat farm. So yeah, I'll cut to that now. Okay, so you've seen a few snapshots there anyway, of what we got up to. There was, as I said, the farm, a little bit of mining to get ourselves sorted up with some iron so we could get some iron tools. The objective for the episode that I recorded was to get a bucket so that we could, expand the farm properly rather than planting down here by the water, along the water's edge. I wanted to set up a little farm nearby. I don't want to alter the land around here too much because I don't intend on living here, pretty basically. So um, I don't want to do too much work here before moving on. But I also want to get us set up a little bit so that we're not, running through the night. We're not doing exactly what I'm doing now, basically running around with 3 hunger bars, 3 chicken wings because we're absolutely starving. So I want to build a little kind of base of operations here, and then as we go, obviously, as we find our feet in this series, we will move on to an area that we actually want to live in. There's nothing wrong with this area per se. Possibly in the snapshots, because I'll be editing them after this, obviously. I don't know exactly what you guys have seen, but we seen earlier that this area is quite cool. Come up here. The hunger is really causing an issue with the climbing. But if we can get to the top here, perfect. There's a lot of potential here, right? So we've got a big kind of ocean that I presume wraps from this right hand side over to the left hand side. I'd imagine the land there terminates like a headland almost. So we could build like basically a nice marina in here, a nice kind of dock area. Or we could turn this into a canal so that this body of water is connected to this body of water. We got some really kind of unique looking structures over there, that could really kind of lend itself to like fantastical kind of James Cameron Avatar kind of vibes, you know, the floating islands. Um, Over in this direction, you can't see it now, but there's a nice kind of hill that we could try like build a wall, like bridge basically from this hill to this hill. And then over here, I think what we will do eventually to set ourselves up is turn this into a kind of dwarven stronghold. So you can see this overhang here. It just screams kind of modern apartment, big glass windows, kind of modern apartment vibes, studio apartment if you get what I'm saying. But I don't like modern builds in Minecraft personally. I like to keep it more rustic and kind of almost like fantastical and kind of medieval kind of vibes, you know. Ancient history as well. So like we might have a medieval tavern, and then down the road we'll have the Roman Colosseum. Who knows? But I think there's a lot of potential here where this could be like a doorway, like something from Erebor in The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, and then up on top of the hill we could have like a kind of dark wizard's tower. Um, do you know? We'll see as time. Like this could be our last episode in this area, but I'm just frustrated, I suppose. Not frustrated, but just it's part of the learning curve, isn't it? I think every YouTuber has a video where their audio has failed or their files corrupted, and they've just, you know, they've just done a big major build or something, and then the file corrupts and they can't actually show how it was done. So it's part of the process, me learning how to do different things with my software, because at the moment it is very bare bones. It's, you know, turn on the microphone, make sure the software is recording, and go. The quality isn't optimized. The software by all means isn't optimized. You know, it's open source software that I'm using. Um, so like it's just part of the learning curve and growing and experience. So it's fine. It's not the end of the world. But I did want to. I still wanted to get an episode out. Um, so I don't know how long this one's gonna be, given that you know there's a snapshot of what we did, um, and then also like there was a lot of talking, as there tends to be with me, of course. There was a lot of talking in that video that we lost the audio on. So you know, it was kind of just a lot of it not very important. I was talking about Formula One, just how the current championship is going, and you know, I'm just really kind of enjoying it and seeing the smaller teams doing well. Um, you know, it could be quite boring if you're watching Oscar Piastri lead by like 8 seconds and there's 3 laps to go, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I don't need to keep watching this. You know, he's won the Grand Prix, big deal. But there's still like loads of fights going on in the middle of the grid, which is really entertaining. So like the Grand Prix last weekend, I don't actually think I saw Oscar once. Oscar took off, Oscar Piastri took off, drove off into the sunset. But like most of the race was following like Oliver Bierman and oh, was it Sainz and Hamilton, I think maybe. So that was great, really entertaining. So there was just a little bit about that in the previous video, or the previous recording that has since been lost, obviously. Um, and then I touched on the Hunger Games. My sister was visiting this week for her Easter holidays. She came down for a couple nights, and we watched the Hunger Games for the first time with her. She's never seen it. She's never read it. So she's 12, and she wasn't too keen on watching it when we suggested it. Orla has been reading Sunrise on the Reaping, which came out a couple of weeks ago. So Orla's back into her Hunger Games phase, and we suggested that my sister watch the first Hunger Games. So the previous recording touches on that and how it somewhat reflects the modern world. Like, you know, it's I really appreciate fantasy stories or sci-fi stories that basically mimic real life. And I think The Hunger Games is one of those that does that very well. This kind of, you know, growing up I was obviously younger, but growing up, it was like, oh wow, like what a funky world. Like the distant future where the United States has succumbed to climate change and rising sea levels. Society as we know it has collapsed, and from the ashes has emerged this kind of authoritarian government that forces innocent people to kill each other for sport, essentially. Um, and that's, okay because they're other. It doesn't matter how we treat the districts because they're other. They're not us. They're not capital. So these people, these innocent, end quotes, people are killing each other. That's what they do, Like they're essentially below us, so we can justify murdering them and treating them without any dignity and fairness. And you're like, oh wow, that's like so sci-fi. It's like, no, it's not. It's the most common thing on planet Earth, like since the dawn of time, is whoever is holding the power, whoever has the torch, if you like, um, whoever has the beanbag. Did you ever do in primary school where you're only allowed to speak if you have the beanbag? Whoever holds the beanbag has the power. That's as time immemorial. That's been the case, And there's a scene in Mockingjay Part One. I talked about this in the previous video. I think it's a really important point to highlight. That's why I'm talking about it again. There's a scene in Mockingjay Part 1 where Katniss visits a hospital in District 8, I believe it is. And a lot of the people in the hospital are very, very young men, essentially children, and injured men and women, of all ages, and children too, innocent children, innocent people, just trying to live their lives and, I suppose, fight for something bigger, fight for a system that isn't oppressive. And the capital's answer to that is to bomb it, because from their perspective, from the capital's perspective, these people, and like, in Songbirds and Snakes, like, they call the people from the districts like animals. So like when I use the word people, I think there's some members of the capital that are reluctant to even call district humans people, the capital's response to these people fighting for their kind of right to happiness, I guess, if you want to say it like that, is to bomb this hospital, because Katniss is the Mockingjay, and anyone who associates with the Mockingjay is a traitor, and therefore it's okay to kill them. You've been warned. Any sort of dissent, any sort of disobedience will be punished. The Mockingjay is a threat to the system, and anyone who deals with the Mockingjay is essentially a criminal, and it's okay to kill them. And again, you're like, oh wow, like what fantastic world building, Suzanne Collins, you're so creative. Like, she is, absolutely. I'm not knocking Suzanne Collins at all. But like, that happens every single day in Gaza, And like, when the Hunger Games came out, the general public was pro Katniss. I don't think there's a single person who went to the Hunger Games in the cinema or watched it on DVD or even read the books that didn't side with Katniss. Katniss is, Katniss is the good guy. The rebellion is the good guy, and the capital are the bad guys. That's the whole point of the bloody story. And that was 10 years ago, where kind of we could collectively agree that Katniss is on the right side and President Snow's on the bad side. Fast forward 10 years, you're seeing people defend the actions of Israel, bombing and killing innocent people. Because, well, they associate themselves with the enemy, and the enemy must be eradicated. So, I think it's a really important point to highlight. If you haven't watched the Hunger Games in a couple of years, or if you've never watched them, if you've never read them, go back and watch it, and watch that scene, and rather than thinking of, wow, like this is really heavy and sad, and it's affecting Katniss's mental health and stuff like this, think of what's actually going on a day-to-day basis in Gaza, and then have a real think about it, because a lot of people, myself included, I like to think of myself as district. When I read the Hunger Games, I am pro-district, I'm pro-rebellion, and what the capital is doing is wrong, you know? But in reality, as a white man who has grown up in the Western world, in a developed country in the Western world, I'm a native English speaker. I come from Scotland, and I live in Ireland. So Ireland has, I suppose, the nuance there. Like, Ireland has its own dark history with colonialism and foreign powers. But for the sake of the argument, I'm not district at all. Realistically, I would be, if the Hunger Games was a real thing, I would be capital born, given my privilege and my background and my upbringing. Would I be Snow's right-hand man? No. But I'd probably be a peacekeeper. I'd probably be maybe a game maker, or I'd work in the capital. I don't know, in a restaurant. I don't know. You tell me. The point is, I think a lot of us think of ourselves as districts, and that we would fight with Katniss. I think in reality, for many of us, that wouldn't actually be the case. If we could snap our fingers and translate our world into the Hunger Games world of Panem, I think a lot of us would find ourselves on the wrong side of history. And I want to use that example again of the hospital in Mockingjay Part 1. We, as in, I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but we, a collective we, me and my peers, people that I grew up with, people that live with me, near me, around me, work with me, we stand idly by while basically a far superior in military strength power kills and prosecutes innocent people. And we all give out about it, well, a lot of us give out about it. We go online, we share stories on Instagram, we repost these things and such, which I suppose makes us better than the capital a little bit. We do have free speech, we do have inverted commas free media, but for the most part we do nothing about the injustices in the world, and I think we can do better. I really do. I genuinely think that people my age, older and younger, men, women, it doesn't matter, we could all do better to help our fellow man. We could all do a little bit more for those living in the districts. And by that I mean those in third world countries who aren't treated appropriately or fairly by corporations, by their own governments or by foreign governments. And I think it's important for us all to kind of reflect on that when it comes down to the wire, will we be on the right side of history? Are you going to stand up for those that can't stand up for themselves and actually voice something or do something to enact change, rather than just, I suppose, standing idly by and saying, isn't that tragic? So yeah, pretty heavy stuff, guys, but important to talk about nonetheless, I think. Life is heavy at times, and it takes courage to stand up to the wrongs in the world, do what is right, not what is easy, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So with that, I will leave you. We're coming up on 20 minutes in this recording, so I'm going to chop and change a little bit of the previous recording just to give you guys some insight into what we got up to. There was a little bit of cave exploring, a little bit of zombie fighting and farming, as you can see, but nothing too crazy happened. And yeah, I'll leave it here. I'll see you guys in the next one, and thanks for listening.